What's going on, everyone? So, the center position is something that needs to be addressed. Lakers need two centers. Lakers are aware that they need two centers and are active in trying to solve that center position. Obviously, you need a clear-cut starting center, and then you need a backup center. Now, Lakers have several options, whether it's free agency or trade. I think more likely than not, if you're going to land a real clear-cut starting center, it's probably going to be via trade. But luckily, there are several options on the table. We'll see what ends up happening. We'll see if any of these guys end up falling in the Lakers' laps. But got reports in particular about Brook Lopez. Now, Laker and Laker fans should be very familiar with Brook Lopez. He was a guy that actually didn't want to leave the Lakers. The Lakers ended up trading him, and he wanted to stick around, right? And he's a guy that they probably should have kept, especially alongside Anthony Davis, right? But nonetheless, they end up trading him, right? And now they could look to bring him back. Brook Lopez is expected to leave, based on reports, expected to leave the Milwaukee Bucks this upcoming offseason. He's not expected to stick around, which means he's more likely than not going to go to a new team. And the Los Angeles Lakers loves LA, wanted to be in LA, right? Makes some sense for the Lakers, would likely play a big role for the Lakers, right? Lakers, based on reports, have had interest in Brook Lopez. I mean, they even considered trading for him last year, right? Luckily, they didn't, because you might be able to just sign him. Here's my thing about Brook Lopez, though, right? I'm not against bringing in Brook Lopez, even though he's 37, right? It's definitely a concern. Is there this decline, right? Like he was not great, particularly in the playoffs and towards the back end. I mean, so much so that they were not starting him at times. They were bringing him off the bench. They were cutting his minutes down, right? Like, but part of that was just like Milwaukee was just a mess, right? So how much of it was like him having a decline? How much of it was like there's concerns and questions is my point, right? With Brook Lopez. Now, again, I'm not against bringing in Brook Lopez, even with his age, but it cannot be in a starting role. I'm sorry, right? Like Brook Lopez, he still, I think, has something in the tank. He is a guy. Brook Lopez actually is like the perfect LeBron center, right? We're looking for a Luka center because Luka is our guy in the franchise, in the face of the franchise now going forward. So you want a Luka guy. But as far as LeBron goes, Brook Lopez is ideal, right? Because Luka, he likes to create that dribble penetration, get into the teeth of the defense, have the defense collapse, and then easy lob to, a dunker spot big or a rolling big or whatever, right? Where a guy like LeBron, he likes it cleared out, right? He wants everybody cleared out so that way he can kind of bully his way to the basket, get to the basket, finish at the rim, or kick out to shooters, right? That's LeBron's game. So a guy like a Brook Lopez makes a ton of sense for LeBron James, which is why I wouldn't mind having him in a backup role. If you brought in Brook Lopez in a backup role as like a skilled big in a backup position to where you're kind of running him with LeBron, perfect. I'm all for that. Like something that I've talked about with the Lakers is like, I don't think it's a necessity to get a skilled big, but I would love if we could have the diversity of the potential big men and lineups that you have, right? Talked about the 2020 roster, right? You look at Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. You had your skilled big man that can basically do everything out there on the basketball court, self-create, create a little bit for others, isn't reliant on playmaking. Then you had Dwight Howard, who was that big, physical, imposing center that could bang with the big boys, pick up a flagrant, pick up a tech, right? Like just be your enforcer. And then you had a JaVale McGee that was that floor running, athletic, hyper type of center, right? So I'm all for kind of going that version of the Lakers. Obviously, you're not going to get an Anthony Davis. Obviously, you're not going to get a Dwight Howard and a JaVale McGee. But can you get a Brook Lopez who can be that skilled big that can stretch the floor and knock down the mid-range, and you can run some pick and pop actions, but you can also dump it to him and he can go to work around the rim, still protect the rim, right? Make some plays out of the post, create a little bit for himself, create a little bit for others. Can you go get, keep Jackson Hayes and have him be your JaVale McGee, just floor running, pick up the pace, run and gun style. Supposedly Jackson Hayes is still interested in sticking around with the Lakers, even though there were prior reports that hey, he might look to go elsewhere, right? So point is like if you can have that diverse lineup at the center position, I'm all for it. I just don't like the idea of Brook Lopez as your starting center, even in a gap year, right? Because I've talked about like the Lakers potentially going into a gap year because Lakers could have like $100 million coming off the books after this year. If they kind of just like wait, like if go get a Clint Capella and get a Brook Lopez and then sign Jackson Hayes to a 1-year deal. All three guys are 1-year deal. And you'd have LeBron's money coming off the books, depending on his contract. But I imagine he signs another 1+1. But LeBron's money coming off the books, plus Reeves, Rui, Gabe Vincent, Dorian Finney-Smith, potentially, Maxi Kleba, Shake Milton, right? Like Lakers would have like $100 million coming off the books. I mean, Lakers could basically go get whatever they want at that point. So I do think that there's an argument to be made there. And I wouldn't hate the Lakers kind of going and getting a Brook Lopez and a Clint Capella if that's the route that they want to go. But again, I don't think you go with Brook Lopez as your starter, particularly with what the Lakers are trying to run, how the Lakers are trying to play. And I just think you need a more mobile defensive big. Brook Lopez can still protect the rim. Brook Lopez can still be that rim deterrent and block shots, do all that stuff, right? But I'd like somebody, in the realm that can kind of, keep guys in front of them, especially if you're running Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic in your backcourt, right? Like you need some mobile defense. You need some athleticism there. And Brook Lopez isn't this epitome of athleticism, right? Good, solid defensive center. But point is to me, beyond that, a couple things. One, how much money does he want? Right? If he wants, if you have to essentially sign and trade for him, then no, hard pass, good luck to you, go somewhere else. Right? But if he's willing to come in on a vet minimum, right? If he's like, yeah, hey, I want to be with the Lakers the last, 2-3 years of my career, sign a 2-year vet minimum contract, perfect, fine, no problem. Right? Sign him up. Right? Because at that point, even if he, year 2 is our third big, like he still has value, still a guy that can stretch the floor, has playoff experience, right? Guy that has won an NBA championship, right? Like he's a guy that would be ideal for the Lakers, right? But again, if you have to go and trade for him, or he want like, hey, I'm only going with you if you free up your full mid-level exception or something like that, it's like, again, good luck to you, buddy, right? Like, hope you find that team. But as far as Brook Lopez goes and his production on the court, again, there are concerns about like, does he have a drastic drop-off? Right? Because like I said, at the back end of last season, he kind of, he was having his struggles, right? Supposedly he's dealing with a couple knick-knack injuries and stuff like that. He has been, one of the good things is he has been healthy, for his career. He's a guy that, plays games, which is what you want. But supposedly, there's some little knick-knack stuff and whatnot. And how much of it was just the team in general, and they were kind of scrambling at times, right? There were times where they were like running Bobby Portis, et cetera, just trying to go like run and gun, right? So they were in a very weird position to where it's like, I don't know, like you look at Brook Lopez in his production last year, like it wasn't bad. He wasn't like, oh man, he hit this like terrible wall and was just garbage, right? Wasn't anything like that. But it is, the question is, again, he's 37, he's going to be 38 next year. It's just like, how long until you start seeing that drastic decline, and particularly on the defensive side and being able to protect the rim. But let's get into the numbers here a little bit, right? Because what can he provide? What can he do for this team? Well, 80 games played, which is good. Like I said, you look at the last few years, 80 games, 79 games, 78 games. So he's giving you roughly 80 games a season. Best ability is availability, right? Like you need guys that can play, right? Which is why I wouldn't mind him in a backup role, because he's going to give you 80 games a season, and you need that over an 82-game season. And he's a guy that is good enough to where you can start him on any given night, right? Again, him in a backup role doesn't mean that, you can't, I don't want to ever see him starting or on the basketball. No, like I'm fine with him starting on, a random Tuesday or whatever, because our clear-cut starter, needs the night off or something, whether it's a Mark Williams trade or whatever, right? It's like, okay, well, it's fine. Give him the night off, bring in Brook Lopez. Boom, we're in business. So again, best ability is availability, but averaged just under 32 minutes per game at 31.8. Took 9.7 field goal attempts, which was on par with the previous year. It is down from the last, the 2 years prior to the last 2 years. So basically the 2021, 2022, and 2022, 2023 season. But that is basically when they ended up getting Damian Lillard. So it kind of makes sense that, he'd take a couple shots less. But 9.7 attempts, 50.9% field goal percentage, which is actually up from the previous year of 48.5%. 3-point shooting on 4.7 attempts, 37.3%, which is up from 36.6% the previous year. 2-point percentage, 63.6%. on 5 attempts, which again is up from the previous year, in which he shot 62.1% on 4.4 attempts. EFG of 60%, which again is up from the 58.3% the previous year. Free throw shooting, 82.6% from the free throw line on 1.7 attempts, which is again up slightly to the 82.1% on 1.7 free throw attempts. So again, had a better production here. Rebounding, 5 rebounds. That's another big problem that I have with him, which is why I don't really like him in the starting unit. Now, you could argue, right, how many teams have a LeBron James and Luka Doncic who are going to go get you 8 rebounds each. So you don't necessarily need a guy that's at the center position that's going to get you 13 rebounds. You need a guy that can kind of help rebound. But he's never been a great rebounder. And it's not just because he has Giannis Antetokounmpo, because for his career, he is a 6 rebound a game guy, right? He has had a couple years where he was good. He had his first 2 years in the league, he had 8.1, 8.6. And then he's had a couple, 7, just slightly below 8. But those were in his Brooklyn days. Basically, after his last season in Brooklyn, the most rebounds he's had was in 2022, 2023, which was 6.7. So again, rebounding is a concern, but 2 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks per game with 13 points. So he's basically a 13, 5, 2, 1, and 2 guy, which would be fine, right? Like I'm not against it at all for the Lakers, but I just, again, in a starting role, for me, it's a pass. In a backup role, sure, I'm not against it at all. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So if you enjoy these types of videos, truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.